Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're plunging into, well, a whole stack of sources, articles, research bits, guides, all really focused on one massive topic: the skills you actually need to navigate life.
Yeah, it's a huge one.
What are these essential life skills? Why do they feel, more important now than ever? And crucially, how do you actually get good at them?
Right.
So our mission today is to try and cut through the noise, pull out the most powerful nuggets of knowledge from all this material, and help you understand the surprisingly diverse toolkit required to really make the most out of life and deal effectively with its challenges.
And what's really fascinating right from the start, looking at these sources, is that the specific list of essential life skills, it isn't fixed at all.
Oh, interesting.
It can look incredibly different depending on your life circumstances, your culture, your age, even where you live.
Right, like a teenager versus an adult.
Exactly. The skills a teenager needs are different from what an adult requires, or say someone in a big city versus someone in the countryside. But even with all that variation, there is definitely common ground. There are fundamentals.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Kicking off with that common ground. What exactly are we even talking about when we say life skills?
Good question.
The sources give us a broad, but I think useful definition. Basically, any skill that is helpful in your life, especially those you need to deal well and effectively with life's challenges.
So, pretty broad.
Yeah, you can think about the simple stuff: tying your shoes, learning to ride a bike, maybe driving a car eventually. Those are definitely useful skills.
And absolutely foundational.
But the term stretches way, way beyond just those practical basics into much more complex abilities, doesn't it?
It really does. And to give this some structure, there's a framework that gets mentioned a lot from the World Health Organization, actually back in 1999. And they identified 6 key areas. These are communication and interpersonal skills, decision-making and problem-solving, creative thinking, and critical thinking.
Critical thinking. We'll come back to that.
Definitely. Then self-awareness and empathy, and they specifically highlight these as key parts of emotional intelligence.
Right, EQ.
Then assertiveness and equanimity, which is basically, self-control. And finally, resilience and the ability to cope with problems.
Wow. That list really hits you with how broad this topic actually is. It's not just like knowing how to cook or manage money.
No, not at all.
It's this deep internal and relational stuff too.
Yeah.
I think the key takeaway from that framework, for me anyway, is realizing life skills covers cognitive, emotional, and social abilities alongside the practical ones.
It's holistic, really.
And one source suggests that while the specific skills might shift, study skills when you're in school, maybe parenting skills later on, perhaps the most important life skill of all isn't even a specific skill, but just the ability and the willingness to learn.
The meta skill.
Exactly. The idea that learning isn't just for school, it's like this continuous lifelong thing.
That willingness to keep learning, it feels like the absolute bedrock, doesn't it? It's the skill that lets you pick up all the others.
Totally agree. Now, let's take one of those WHO areas, critical thinking, and do a bit of a deeper dive using that Wikipedia source we looked at.
Okay.
Critical thinking gets talked about a lot, but what is it really at its core?
Well, at its core, the definition is basically the process of analyzing facts, evidence, observations, arguments, all to make sound conclusions or informed choices.
So not just reacting.
Right. The goal is to form a judgment, but through a specific process. Applying rational, skeptical, unbiased analysis and evaluation. It's about thinking clearly, rationally, spotting the connections between ideas.
Without letting your own biases run the show.
Exactly, or at least being aware of them.
And here's where it gets really interesting for me.
Yeah.
This is not some new idea, right?
Not at all. The sources trace the history of this kind of reasoning in the West way, way back. We're talking ancient Greece. Yeah, the philosopher Socrates, around 470 to 399 BC. His teachings are pointed to as some of the earliest sort of foundational records of what we now call critical thinking.
So what did he actually say or do?
Well, Socrates established this really profound idea that authority figures or tradition, they don't automatically have the truth just because of who they are.
Okay, that's big.
Huge. He believed that to live a good life, you needed to cultivate what he called an interrogative soul.
An interrogative soul. I like that.
It means constantly asking critical questions, seeking evidence for claims, really examining facts carefully, and following the logical implications of what people say and do. His famous method, asking probing answering questions.
Charadic method.
Right. It often showed people that they couldn't actually provide rational reasons for the things they believed so confidently.
Wow. I also never thought about critical thinking going back that far. And the word itself, critical.
It comes from the Greek kritikos, meaning able to discern. So it implies critique, judgment.
But the actual phrase critical thinking is much newer.
Much newer in English, yeah. The sources say it didn't really pop up in literary journals until around 1815, and its meaning kept evolving into the broader thinking skill we talk about today.
So the idea is ancient, but the label is relatively modern. Fascinating.
Exactly. And experts today, well, they define it in slightly different ways, as the sources show.
Like what?
It can be described as an intellectually disciplined process, actively applying, analyzing, synthesizing, evaluating information, or simply thinking that's clear, rational, open-minded, and based on evidence.
Okay.
Some even simplify it further. It's basically thinking about your own thinking, but, in a structured way designed to organize it, clarify it, improve it, especially by spotting your own errors and biases.
It definitely sounds like it's intensely linked to logic and rationality.
Oh, absolutely. The study of logic, argumentation, it's highly relevant. Logic gives you tools to analyze arguments, tell the difference between statements that are logically true or false just based on how they're structured.
Right.
There was historically this first wave view, very focused on logic, almost saying good thinking is just following logical rules.
Bit robotic.
Maybe. But then a second wave perspective came along, arguing that, yeah, logic is crucial, but good thinking isn't only about logical operations, there's more to it.
Like deduction and induction.
Exactly. Those are types of logical reasoning. Deduction is going from general premises to a specific conclusion. The simple example is always like, X is human, all humans have a face, therefore X has a face.
Got it.
And induction is kind of the other way, inferring a general pattern from specific things you observe.
So if you're trying to do critical thinking, like practically, what does that actually require from you?
It calls for a whole suite of abilities, really. Recognizing problems and finding practical ways to tackle them. Understanding why prioritizing is important, what needs attention first.
Okay.
Actively gathering relevant information, not just passively receiving it. Being able to spot those unstated assumptions or values that might be influencing an argument.
That's a tricky one.
It is. Interpreting data accurately, assessing evidence rigorously, evaluating arguments logically, then drawing conclusions that are genuinely warranted, not just jumping to them. And this is key, being willing to test those conclusions against new information or experience.
It sounds like a very active questioning process, not passive at all.
Definitely not passive.
So why does this matter so much to you, listening right now, navigating life today? The sources are really clear on this, aren't they?
Crystal clear. Critical thinking is described as a powerful shield against misinformation, which, let's face it, is absolutely everywhere now.
Tell me about it.
It's fundamental for independent thought, not just swallowing whatever you're told. It's key for effective problem solving, making sound, logical judgments in all parts of your life.
And it's not just for academics, right?
Not at all. The sources highlight its importance across all professional fields. Whether you're approaching a problem like a scientist, an engineer, a nurse, a manager, an artist, the principles apply.
Okay, that makes sense.
And actually, here are a couple of really fascinating little details from the research that stuck out to me.
Oh, yeah.
One study mentioned that computer-mediated communication, like online forums, it might actually promote some parts of critical thinking. Specifically, it seems to encourage people to give more justifications for their points.
Okay.
But interestingly, it seemed to hinder other aspects, like collaborative brainstorming or really building meaningfully on what others say, maybe because the interaction speed is different than face-to-face.
That's really interesting. Slower, maybe more thought-out justifications, but less back-and-forth building.
Potentially. And another finding was about social experience. It seems really vital for developing skepticism and critical thinking.
How so?
Well, one study compared younger kids in China, like 6, 7 years old, with slightly older kids in the US, maybe 10, 11, and surprisingly, they found similar levels of skepticism.
That is surprising. You'd expect the older kids.
Right. It suggests that maybe the social environment and the experiences you have play a bigger role in developing these skills than just age alone.
Wow, that really makes you think, doesn't it? How the way we interact, the social context, fundamentally shapes our ability to think critically. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. From thinking clearly about facts to navigating the complex world of feelings.
The emotional landscape.
Exactly. Another absolutely crucial skill mentioned by the WHO and other sources is emotional intelligence, or EQ. What's this all about?
Emotional intelligence, or EQ, using the definitions from the sources, it's basically the ability to express, recognize, use, and manage your own emotions, and also the emotions